Welcome to the Norfolk UNordinary podcast. I'm your host, Dan Johnson. I've lived here in Norfolk County for over 40 years, and together today, we're going to hear from the unordinary people who make our small towns and countryside a great place to call home. This episode of Norfolk UNordinary is brought to you by Coco Cabana Chocolate Fudge Gourmet Cafe. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram as they're always posting pictures of new and creative sweet treats. When you drop into Coco Cabana, say hello to its owner, Dave Tank, who has been serving the Port Dover community since 1995. Say hello to me too. I try to start my day at Coco's with friendly conversation and a good cup of tea. Open 7 days a week, year-round. Start your morning or fuel your afternoon with a hot coffee, tea, espresso, latte, and once you see it, you'll want to grab a little sweet piece of fudge from Coco Cabana, 16 Walker Street, Port Dover, Ontario. Mr. Defreyne, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dan, for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Mr. Defreyne, can I call you Bob?
Absolutely.
For all those Norfolk County people out there who are listening, because Mr. Defreyne, your grade 8 teacher or your elementary school teacher, is on the Norfolk UNordinary podcast. Yes, Mr. Defreyne is here in my home, in my studio this morning. And Bob, you were my grade 8 teacher when I was at Townsend Central School. And Bob, before I share some of my thoughts about what I remember about you, I want you to start. Bob, what, if anything, do you remember about me?
Dan, I've taught thousands of kids in my career, and there's always a handful that stand out, and you were definitely one of them. You were tenacious, hardworking, but most of all, you were a very, very good person. A person that you'd want every...
All right, Bob, that's enough, Bob. Bob is reading a script that I put in front of me. No, that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for, you were the shortest kid I think I've ever taught, but man, you had an engine, something like that?
Absolutely. He loved sports, heart of gold, worked hard, was my point guard in grade 8. I think we won the championship.
Yeah, it's the world championship? There you go.
But...
Awesome. Bob, I for those listening who were in my cohort, I'm going to try to go around the Townsend Central Public School, and so it was Marvin Moyer, Mr. Dennis Sovereign, Diane Clark, Bob Defreyne, Leanne Shears, Mr. Colomea, Mr. Paraki, Ms. McVitie, Ms. Boyko, Mr. Cunningham in the library.
That's right.
Mr. Kinnear, principal, vice principal.
Yep.
Who am I missing? I think I did pretty good. I'm missing a few, no doubt.
I think you nailed it pretty well.
Yeah. So that was my time. And I know as a career teacher, you taught under or with a lot of teachers and a lot of different VPs and principals along the way. But that was the year that I was at Townsend Central Public School. Those are my teachers, and I had Diane Clark in grade 7, and then I was blessed to have you as my teacher in grade 8. Now, Bob, here's what I remember about you, and I got 4 things here. And here's, Bob, 4 things you introduced me to. So number 1, you introduced me to the scientific method. All right? You were rocking the overhead projector like a master. I can still remember using, it was like a purple ink pen on the overhead, and man, what a time that was to be a teacher.
Oh, they're obsolete now. That's hilarious.
But you utilized the best technologies at the time, and you did that well. I remember learning the scientific method, and that was great. So that's one thing I remember you introduced me to. Number 2, you introduced me to weddings. All right, Bob, I was in your wedding. In fact, I think our whole class was in your wedding. What was that all about? Because I have vague memories, and when you mentioned it to me when we were chatting last week, you mentioned, hey, do you remember being in my wedding? And I was like, what? I had forgot. So tell me, what was that about?
My wife, Susan, is also a teacher too, and we wanted to have a choir for our wedding, and we wanted the students from our classes to sing. And, we put it out there to our classes, and I think I had 8 students from my class, and I think she had 8 students from her class, and they made up a wonderful choir. We got married at St. Bernard's Church in Waterford, And, Jillian Backus or Jillian Austin was one of the, Tyler is her husband, and Jordan Moore was one of the singers. And to this day, they still remember being part of that wedding. Just such a wonderful day, and
So Jillian Backus and Jordan Moore have voices of an angel. Is that what you're saying, Bob? Are we going to go that far?
Well, being that I can't sing, everybody has voices of an angel compared to me.
Very good. In fact, Bob, I can remember when you got back from your honeymoon. I can just remember you were giddy, you were happy, you were excited, and what a time of life it was for us to experience that. Interestingly, when I got married in 2009, I was teaching high school phys ed at Sprucedale, which is a jail. And so I got married on a Saturday, and on Monday, I was back in jail. And if you've ever taught in a jail or worked in corrections, you would know that working there, sometimes it can feel like you're in prison. And so it was interesting. And I remember my students were like, as you know, they overheard me talking to one of the rec officers about my getting married. And they're like, Johnson, you didn't get married. You don't get no girls. It was pretty funny. I had to explain to them, I got married this weekend. And I've always looked pretty young. And they just had a hard time soaking that all in. So,
well, I remember, Dan, we got married a week before March break because people told us don't get married right before March break because you're always so tired the week after your wedding. So we got married on the Saturday, back in school on Monday, the week before March break, and then Tuesday was a snow day. And soon I'll never forget that because we were so tired. We just slept the whole day, and then we went away during March break for our honeymoon. And we've recommended that to other people, and they've taken that advice.
We waited until I think Boxing Day. We left for our honeymoon, and
more energy, and
it was sure. Great. Cool. I remember that. So the scientific method, weddings. You also introduced me to basketball, and I compliment you, Bob, because you took the shortest guy in the school and helped me on a journey into a sport I love. I never really was good at, I think, until I got into university where I just started playing all the time. I played 2 to 4 hours a day. Hopefully all my university professors aren't listening to this, but, I had my priorities and sometimes they weren't the best priorities, but I loved playing the game. And it was in grade 8 that you took time to, I remember, because I was so small, I was sort of hucking the ball up from the side, way down from my waist. And you convinced me, Dan, don't, even if you can't get it, just get good form. And I remember you helping with that. And so appreciate that. And fourthly, you introduced me to a career in teaching. And you would say, well, what do you mean? What I mean is, like, you were a guy who I looked up to and said, you know what? I think I'd like to do what that guy does. And it wasn't just the teaching part. It was the whole life, the holistic approach that you had to being a mentor as well as a teacher. And you cared. You were clearly in teaching for reasons other than the summers off and a good paycheck. And that was evident even for a young guy at a young age. And so I, part of my journey in high school, realizing I wanted to be a phys ed teacher was, you kind of inspired me into that. And I wonder if you were still at the school, but do you recall I did a teaching co-op with Diane Leffler? Did you know that? Were you still at the school then?
Diane Leffler or Diane Clark?
Diane Leffler.
Oh, yes. Diane was at...
So I would have been, I think, in grade 11, and I did a co-op. I mean, I was barely older than the students, but that's what I wanted to do. And so I did that. She was amazing. Oh, just amazing. It was great to be in her classroom. And
she got into teaching profession after she raised her amazing daughters who all came through Townsend. And she became a teacher and amazing principal too. Wonderful lady. Absolutely.
Wow. Wonderful. I didn't know she became a principal. Yeah. So those are four things that you introduced me to, Bob. And so the question, I think the first question to ask you is, like, why did you choose to become an elementary school teacher? So you taught grade 8. That's what I remember about you. Probably a lot of listeners to this podcast will, if they're of my age, will remember you as a grade 8 teacher, but you taught other elementary ages as well. Why did you choose to become an elementary school teacher?
Working with children is so much satisfaction is derived from that. the lifestyle of a teacher is excellent. Like Dan said, you get your nights off. And I knew that as I was going to be a parent someday, and I wanted to coach all my kids' teams. And being a teacher lent to that. And coaching the teams, I loved being in the classroom, but I loved even more when it was time for basketball practice or 3-pitch practice or whatever sport was doing. I arranged many games where we went to the high school and played games there. And at Townsend, we had an extensive practice schedule and exhibition schedule before the tournament happened with such good teams. That was, making a difference in young boys and girls' lives. To me, that was the biggest thing. I always seemed to enjoy working with the ones who were the toughest to love. And I loved them the most because you could really make a difference with the ones who needed a little extra help. And those are some of my fondest memories as well, helping those students. And it's fun. And the kids who came to Townsend and Boston were rural kids, and they were just salt of the earth, kind, sweet. I wouldn't change it for anything.
So did the teaching career that you had give you, did you realize that dream or desire you had to work with kids? Was it what you thought it would be? Better, different than what you thought? It sounds like you got the most out of it and you're pretty satisfied.
Yeah, 100% satisfied. There's no way I ever did it for the money. Sometimes I say, I can't believe they're paying me to do this. But that was just me and the connections. I love making with the kids. I always enjoyed working more with the kids than the adults or the parents. People always ask, why didn't you become principal? I said, as a principal, you have to spend so much time working with the parents, and that's not what I enjoyed. I want to make a difference with the kids. And that's why I stayed. And grade 8 was my absolute favorite age. Still young enough that you could mold them a little bit, but old enough that you could have great conversations with them. They were always teaching me things, keeping me up to date on current trends and rap groups and TV shows. I never would have watched Stranger Things if it wasn't for the kids in my class. You got to watch Stranger Things, Mr. D. And yeah, just keeping me young.
Did you have anyone who inspired you into teaching? What was the moment where you made that decision to become an elementary school teacher?
I knew that I had a lot of younger cousins. I was the oldest cousin on my mom's side of the family and enjoyed so much being with them and playing games with them or sports, whatever it is. And said, I think I would like this. I wouldn't say there was any teacher who really inspired me. I think when I was finishing up my career at Mac, I was either going to be an accountant or a teacher. I like my numbers, but realized that teaching would be, I think, a little more rewarding. And did I get that right?
Good, awesome. Okay, I'm going to give you a finish the sentence here. Okay. Some people become teachers for the pay and the summers off. Bob, you became a teacher because.
For the connections you can make, the lifelong memories you have. Students that I taught always coming back and reconnecting with me, and also, coaching them in sports as well was one of the big reasons. One of the big reasons too. But there was no way it was ever for the money. The lifestyle was great. I mentioned that I knew I was going to have a family, and I didn't want to. I wanted to be able to see every one of my kids' games as best I could, and basically I could. Yeah.
I think the best teachers are the ones that are in it for others, right? And yeah, there's great benefits and blessings and of being but in that sort of an occupation, you do the best as a teacher when you give selflessly, even without thanks or appreciation, or even dealing with the most difficult of customers. There's an intrinsic drive, I think, that the best teachers have. And, to be honest, sometimes it's difficult sometimes looking at the education system today, because I don't know that we get the best teachers in the occupation. I think there's some challenges and obstacles. I think there's some people out there that would be amazing teachers that just don't get into the industry, the occupation for several reasons. And yeah, so maybe there's some ways that we can get that better in the future. But Bob, definitely, I affirm and agree with your motives for being in teaching and what you accomplished. You were there for other people, and that was clear. And
yeah, I got one awesome little story I'd like to share about how the little things you can do can make a difference. There was one year I had a student, end of the day, was at Townsend, and he was having a bad day, and he wasn't going to get on the bus. He was just having some problems with some peers, and he wasn't going to get out of his chair, and nothing we could do. So the buses left, and I just sat and talked to him, and I said, listen, let me give you a ride home. Because his mom was working. I said, you give me a ride home? I said, yeah, I'll give you a ride home. Where do you live? He goes, on the near side of Wilsonville. Well, let's go. So we got in the car and we talked the whole way, just like we wasn't teacher student, and we connected. And from that day on, he was never ever a problem in my classroom, and kind of turned a corner as far as his behavior too. And those are the things you gotta do.
To which everyone who's not a school teacher says, who on earth would want to spend all day with grade 8s, right? And even elementary teachers, probably the most dreaded grades to teach from is just because of the challenges, the conflicts, the puberty, all that stuff that goes on the face of life. But Bob, you, I would say, are all the more gracious and all the more about relationships and the seeing a person become and develop into a good human being. And that's good. Awesome. Well, Norfolk County is definitely better. You mentioned that you've taught thousands of students, and that's crazy when you think about it. Thousands of students.
It is. It's mind-boggling.
And they all loved you, right? Every single one of them.
I tried.
Yeah, very good. So let's take me back a little bit to the story that no one would know about Bob Defreyne, is where your life began, right? So when you're a student in school, you just show up in September and all of a sudden you got a new teacher. And that teacher, you get to know them for 8 months or 10 months, whatever the school year is. And then you say goodbye. And then, so I think our listeners would be curious to know, where did your life begin? So start with geography. Like, where were you born? And
right. So my father was a bank manager, Bank of Montreal in Toronto. I was born in Toronto, lived there for 7 years, but both my parents are from Norfolk County, and they were desperate to get back to this area. And when a transfer came up for my father to move back, it was Waterford, even though they were from Delhi, but Waterford was okay, even though, according to my mother, she wasn't sure about Waterford because they never had the best high school basketball teams, and quote.
That was the biggest deal back then.
Oh,
obviously.
It was.
There wouldn't be anything bigger than that.
She was a Raider. Anyways, and we moved back to Waterford, and I started school at St. Bernard's and went to high school in Waterford, and it wouldn't change anything. That's for sure.
Bob, I'm wondering, is your name on any of the trophy display cases in Waterford District High School?
Oh, we did not have good basketball teams. Maybe I don't think so.
No? Okay.
And I was small. Even though I'm over 6 feet now, I did not grow until in the grade 12.
Wow.
I was the smallest kid in the class in grade 8. And
so you're saying there's still a chance for me?
Well,
what if I enrolled back in high school? There's still a chance? Yeah.
I had some good genes. My grandfather was tall, so eventually they knew I was going to grow, but I didn't help until later on. And kind of like you, Dan, I did not. My best basketball years were after high school. Before I became a teacher, I spent years at EA and Sacred Heart in Langton. And I was lucky enough to be able to drive to school with my cousin Brenda and Jane McLean and Mike Craig. We met at Simcoe and we carpool. Well, after school, when my job as an EA was done, they were still planning and doing stuff. So I would go to the gym and I would shoot every day, sometimes from 3 till 4, and just shoot and perfect my form. And wow, did that ever make a difference? That repetition. And played some men's league basketball and played lots of intramurals and got a little bit better just because of circumstance.
So you grew up in Waterford, and what were your childhood years in Waterford? What years were those? 19...
Would have been
80s?
1971 to when I left for Mac University in like 84.
Wow. What was the world like back then, Bob?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, what did you do after school? I mean,
Went to Magic Mart, got a popsicle, sat in the church steps and watched the cars go by with my buddies and
this
played
episode
sports.
is brought to you by Magic Mart,
Absolutely.
downtown Main Street, Waterford. Right?
For a quarter, you get pop and chips. Going to the ballpark. That was an event. Fastball. My dad was a fastball pitcher for the Waterford Old Timers. I was bat boy, and the stands would be packed
Wow.
for games. That was entertainment. There was no video games. There was no streaming services. When you watch TV, you had to get up to turn the channel. Yep, there was no remotes. So it was hockey and basketball and staying out late at night in the neighborhood with lots of young kids who were playing hide and seek.
Where did you take your girlfriend back then? What did you do in Waterford? Then, just kidding, Bob. You don't have to answer that question. Magic Mart, right?
No movie theaters. Yeah.
Awesome. So I know that I never got to see it, but I hear that you were quite the athlete as well. And so what was the main sport you played? Was it fastball?
Yes.
That was the yeah. Okay, tell me a little bit about that.
Fastball. I started playing when I was like 7, and we developed a good core of players and won a couple of Ontario eliminations, went to the Eastern Canadians in Summerside, PEI, in Halifax, Nova Scotia, in back-to-back years. Finished second and third, never got the gold medal. Played in a highly competitive tri-county fastball league, which include top teams from Jarvis and Caledonia and Mount Hope, and including I played in the Landings fastball team. We had a Waterford team called Rockford, who were also fantastic, led by their fantastic pitcher George Ryder, who's gone on to be inducted into the Fastball Hall of Fame later on. That was very high level. One level below senior. Senior was the best in Ontario and Canada, and but to play that you had to do one heck of a lot of travel, and that was almost a full-time commitment to play that.
Yes.
So
Your parents were in?
Parents never missed a game. They love watching us play, and my sister too. They played fastball as well. All three of them, very good. Been to summer games, and actually coached one of them when I first started coaching. And then I got into coaching.
Yeah. Speaking of coaching, one of the questions I wanted to have, which is you're gonna have to. You like numbers, so you'll be able to compute this quick. But how many sports teams do you think you've coached between school, professionally as a career teacher? All right, that could be maybe 4 a year times 25, whatever it is, and then in the community, like just here in Norfolk County.
Well, school, 30 years, at least 2 a year, sometimes 3, depending on who did what. So that's
60 to 90.
Yeah. And then coaching every year before I had my sons. I have 3 sons. Girls fastball. I was part of the...
Is that in the community?
Yep.
Yep.
We won an Ontario championship. I was in grade 8. I was teaching grade 8, and a few of the girls came out and said, "Mr. D, we need a coach for our baseball team, our fastball team." And I was still playing at the time, but I knew the girls, and they were just the best, one of the best group of girls ever to come through Townsend. As was Melissa Cornier, who came up to ask me, and she was with Emma Hogg and Amber Logan, and I know Melinda Salazar, even though she was at our school, got to know her well. She was our pitcher, and signed up, went to a course, and that first year we were provincial champions. We won it in a day in September, beat Jarvis in the finals, and the Diamond in Waterford was packed to watch the Pee Wee girls win the All Ontario Championships. It was pretty cool. I wasn't even married yet, and then coached them as part of the Norfolk Nets, the original, I don't want to say committee. What's the name of the people in charge? I wasn't the president. Paul O'Coin was president, but I was house league convener. So I was got that off the ground.
That's Waterford basketball.
Yeah, it's called Norfolk Nets.
Yep.
Actually, my buddy Brian Pond at the time, he designed the emblem, which they still use today, the logo. So I coached a few teams. Coached with Paul McCormick, who was a teacher at HT. Paul and I were both young and had a lot of fun. And it's funny, you see all these kids that we taught who become adults. Tyler Backus was on one of those teams, and now he coached my kids at HT. That's the best thing. And then when my son started playing, every year I coached their team. So sometimes I was coached part of two teams. So there's Noah's 20, so 15 years of more. So well over 100 teams, Dan.
Well over 100 teams.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's just incredible. Each of those 100 teams, so each of those individual teams required sacrifice, organization, administration, giving a little piece of yourself to it, emotional investment, time investment, sacrifice on your end. Like that needs to be acknowledged, and those are the things that make Norfolk County amazing.
When I coached, I always took pride in my practices. So I being a phys ed teacher as well, I hated kids standing around during gym class. That never happened. So the same thing, I took the same philosophy when I went to coaching as well, and make sure they were always busy on the field or on the court. And that took some planning for sure.
Yes.
No doubt about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I understand. Awesome. So coming out of your teenage years, you went off to McMaster University, became a teacher. The rest is history. We've just sort of got a good little overview about the beginning of your life and growing up in TO and then into Waterford. And let's switch gears a little bit in the conversation. So Norfolk County has been your home now for how many years?
50.
50? All right. I'm trying to do the math, Bob, to figure out how old you are. No, I'm just kidding. I would never do that.
Funny thing is, when we the year we moved to Waterford was the year Yin's restaurant opened in Waterford.
Anyways. Oh, good for you.
Well, that wasn't me. I just remember there's this restaurant.
No, good for you, Bob. That's a win. That's a win. Yeah. So Norfolk County's been home for you over 50 years. And what do you love about living here?
I was thinking about this today, and a lot of it is you feel safe here. Biggest thing. Lots of opportunities, even though we don't have the same, we don't have professional sport teams. We're not far away. Lots of opportunity for the kids to grow, obviously play sports. The schools are nice for the most part. Community schools, nice and small. There's not some of the crime you have to worry about in other places. It's just, everybody knows everybody too, which is, and if you're ever in a pickle or a problem, you can always reach out to friends who can help you out. And I know Dan knows that 100% as well. So
yeah, I think community that we not that we take for granted, but we don't really think about what we have here in Norfolk County until maybe have something to contrast it against. And a couple of guests that I've talked to that have maybe started their life in a more urban area and then moved out to Norfolk County, they talk about there's way more total amount of people living in their neighborhood, but they would say how they've never really felt a community until they lived in a more rural or like a small town where, and again, it's not that everybody knows everybody or everybody knows everything about everybody, but you have this sense that you could know everybody, that you could get access to anything that you need, that if there was trouble, you could access people in your community who'd be able to help you. And that's an amazing thing when you think about it, that again, not that we take it for granted, but we are recipients of it. And it's that community isn't everywhere else. I'm glad that that's something that you mentioned that you love about being here in Norfolk County. Do you think um, do you think that Norfolk County is peculiar in the sense that it produces special people more than anywhere else? What I mean is, like, the culture of our county, and cultures that includes a lot of different things, right? Like the environment, the society that's living here, the peoples, their values, priorities of our people that living in our community. Or are we just like any other place in the world? And if there is something maybe special about our county, what do you think it would be? Could you attribute it to something? I mean, I have some ideas in my mind of what I think, but I don't know if we're exclusive or that, and I wouldn't say that it's nowhere else certainly in the world, but I think there are some special, unique things about Norfolk County. Is there anything you could articulate or attribute it to, if you think that?
Part of it is I think we can really appreciate, even though we're called the South Coast, some of the things that we have here that make us unique. If you've ever been to Waterford, and go on the trail there around the lake, it's unbelievable. Or even biking the trail from Simcoe into Port Dover and going to Silver Lake and just sitting on the benches and watching the ducks and the herons in the water. You can't do that in the big city. You have to travel to be able to do that. And that's a 10-minute, 15-minute bike ride for me to do that every day in the summertime if I choose. So that definitely, to me, is definitely the allure of a place like Norfolk County. And the people it's just not quite as fast-paced as being in a big city. I don't want to use the word cutthroat, but it just seems to be, they seem to have to worry more about competing or fitting in. And I don't find that here. You can be yourself and you'll be accepted for who you are, and all the same opportunities. Play sports, go to the theater, go to a movie. We have all that here, so it's pretty amazing. What do you think about that? What's your take? You have your finger on the pulse of Norfolk better than most.
Yeah, I don't know. I the reason I ask the question is because it's hard. It is hard to put your finger on or to say, are we that special? Is there something about the dirt here? Well, no, it's dirt. The same dirt's everywhere. Is it something about, something in the water? No, there's water everywhere, right? And it comes down to people, right? And a culture. And people are, a culture in unity, a culture that have similar values. And if those things fuse themselves into the teachers and the education system and the business leaders and all that stuff, like I think we might not be unique in that, but I think that we have a high proportion of adults in our community that I was certainly a recipient of when I was a child who gave incredibly, whether that's businesses giving financial resources, whether that's teachers, educators, community members giving to things like coaching, people who get into volunteer firefighting, just some of these services in our community. I think there is something unique, and maybe I can't put my finger on it, but I think there's some traditional values that are still rooted here that I personally love, which is the importance of marriage and family and raising children to, to be good stewards, to be responsible, to be mature, and to contribute. I like to think that I help to make Norfolk better in some of those areas. As a pastor, as someone who's a former teacher, still supply teaching a little bit with the elementary school, but I want to help the next generation continue that, so that we have Bob Defreynes out there and Dan Johnsons and all the other normal people just like us who just want to live our lives for others. And I think there's a lot of that here in this county. I think that's good. I don't think it's good. I think it's great.
Yeah. Well, that kind of goes with my philosophy, all the years of coaching. The kids aren't going to remember the winning and losing. They remember how you treated them.
Bob, we remember the losing.
I remember the winning more.
We remember riding the pine too. Yeah, no, I know what you mean, right? I know what you mean, right? And that's what also makes great teachers great, is that they recognize the whole needs of the individual student. And not all teachers do that.
Yeah.
They don't. And you were a teacher that did that. And you could see there's more to life than just, does this kid know the scientific method, right? And I appreciate that. I think there's a lot of that, especially in our schools here in Norfolk County. In my lifetime, I think there's a lot of, I could just do teachers on this podcast that I know that gave their lives in some of the way that you did and your wife did and whatnot. So I'm going to toss out the word legacy. All right. I'll give you a definition of legacy: an amount of money or property left to someone in a will. That's not the kind of legacy I'm going to ask you. That is the technical, I think, legal term of legacy. That's not what I'm asking. I want to ask you a question about legacy. And Bob, I think you're a guy that has legacy, maybe not in the, like, you're not a billionaire, like in that sort of legacy of, you don't have a high profile social media account where you're influencing millions of people worldwide. But legacy is something I think that everybody leaves. You leave something. And if you look at the legal word, the legal definition here, an amount of property or money left to someone. We all leave things behind, right? We all have a footprint. And Bob, does legacy matter? Do you ever think about that? And I know this is like, of course I do. I think I've left my footprint on everybody. And no, I'm not. I'm asking you to boast or anything like that. But Bob, does your life matter? Are you happy with what you've done? Do you think you've left a good deposit, that you've made an impact here in Norfolk County? And I remember years ago, a mentor of mine asked me, he said, I'm going to ask you a question, and then I'm going to give you a week to think about it and get back to me. Now, I'm not going to give you a week, Bob. You got to answer now. But, he asked me, he's like, in like 10 words or less, what would you want it to say on your gravestone? Right? About this man and his life. And I was like, whoa, I had a week to think about it. And so I want you to think about that, Bob. Think about legacy. Do you think about it? Do you think your life has mattered? And are you happy with what you've done?
Absolutely. I like to think that I have influenced, and to me, it's the youth, that I made a difference in some kids' lives who need the difference. I've had students say to me, and Mr. D, what you did for me in Townsend, you saved my life. Maybe a little over the top, but those were their words, not mine. And when I hear stuff like that, to me, that's my legacy right there. Is just making difference in kids' lives who really needed help.
I agree. I like the way that you said that. And I think there's a lot of listeners that would say, you know what, it's that little difference at a key moment in my life for the youth that really needed it. Maybe they didn't have it in their home, or there was some conflict or some trauma going on, which happens.
100%. Oh,
and
yes,
teachers,
for sure.
we know it more than anyone, because we work with these youth, and we sometimes stumble into information and we learn about the lives of these young people that we're mentoring to and helping. And thank you, Bob. So the follow-up question my mentor asked me, he was like, so is that enough? Is that enough for you? Is that enough?
I think so. I've been blessed with 3 amazing children who have kept me on my toes the last 24 years. Priorities change a little bit when you have your own kids. Dan knows that. They are finished playing sports right now, so there's kind of a void a little bit in my coaching. But I know I'm going to have grandkids down the line, and I'll be happy to assist with their coaching and their development, and we'll see what goes from there.
Nice. I have a tip for you to help get your kids out of the house, Bob. Years ago, there was a commercial, and it was basically the premise was stop cooking with cheese, and eventually your kids will stop coming home, Bob. So
that's a good one.
Good luck with that. Good luck. Your oldest is 24.
Yep.
Oh yeah, you've got a few years.
Yeah.
Before you've got real freedom.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I keep saying I'm ready, but
I'm ready.
Mrs. D goes, no, we're not ready yet. So.
Like I'm ready for them not to stop.
I'm ready for a grandkid. I'm retired. I got time on my hands.
Awesome. I got a couple, not difficult questions, but a couple questions to think about. And number one is I want you to have an opportunity to give advice. I think there's gonna be a lot of listeners to this podcast that are gonna have up to this point have been encouraged in hearing your story, and would love to maybe hear a little bit a little bit of advice. And so, what advice would you give to parents of kids today? And what advice would you give to kids today? And let me keep going here for a second. So the world has changed a lot since I was a child. And Bob, at your age, you've known life in different dispensations, right? Pre-technology, now with technology, right? A modern culture to a postmodern culture. You've a culture that's maybe very faith or religion based to now a very irreligious based. And in all those technology pressures on children, with technology and entertainment, we have children, I think, today, and even adults, some of your former classmates of my age that have kind of sedentary lifestyles because of technology and entertainment. Just as an example, with children, I think there is incredible amounts of pressure on children today. Expectations on them are very high. I think children, they graduate high school earlier than ever. They're facing decisions in high school of like, I'm going to have enormous debt for choosing this particular career pathway. So there's pressure-filled decisions. Statistically, we know that many kids have, nowadays more than ever, have very unstable families or home life, broken parental relationships, or financial hardship. All that being said, we know that life is hard and challenging, and life keeps changing. It isn't static, it's dynamic. What kind of advice, if you could offer to parents with kids nowadays? Or, what would you offer? What advice would you maybe give to kids these days? And maybe even what advice would you give to younger Bob?
As far as being a parent, is just be active with your children's lives. If they have a passion for something, help them follow it. Be it dance, be it sports, be it music, be it art, whatever it is. Help get them into programs that they can, follow that. And that's right. Whatever it was, we tried to do with our boys. Whatever they, seem to really enjoy, we help them explore those paths. As far as kids, you got to put your phone down, get out and play. You got to join sport teams.
Oh, all the kids just left the podcast, Bob.
Yeah. Sure. There's times to watch TikTok or Netflix, whatever the case may be, but you have to socialize, and you develop so many skills by being part of a group, by being part of a team, that are invaluable later on in life. My younger sister was part of a hiring team for her engineering firm. It was the first question they asked people who were applying for jobs: did you play team sports as a kid? First question.
Really?
Second question was, did you have a newspaper route? Yep. Because she knew how valuable it was to all those cooperation, learning how to win, learning how to lose, being part of a team, being responsible. All those things are valuable when it comes to working, being part of the workplace. So I'll use her advice there to share that with you.
That's intriguing. Wonderful. So Bob, you are officially retired. Been retired for how many years now?
Pre-COVID. So my first year of retirement was when COVID hit in March 2020. So
well,
this
first
is my
off,
third year. So
congratulations.
Good timing on my part.
Yes. Wait, did you plan all that?
Oh my gosh.
So I have another term to define for you. Retire. The definition is leave one's job and cease to work. How are you doing?
I have not worked in the classroom a day since, so very good in that aspect. But I have filled my days with other things. I referee high school basketball and club basketball. In the summertime, I bike a lot. I'm also an avid bridge player. That takes up, and which you can play online because COVID took that away. I'm a cook. I prepare meals for my loving wife, and trying to get better at cleaning the house, but that's still a work in progress.
So by cook, you mean the door opens and you go, oh no, I gotta get supper on.
No way.
Are you a thoughtful planner? And
absolutely, for sure.
Wow.
I've got a roast thawing in the fridge right now. It's going to be cooked for tomorrow night. So
we better get you out of here so you get the roast on in time. Wonderful. So Bob,
I like cooking, and I don't like cleaning up. So that's kind of our agreement. But she still works. She's a principal at St. Cecilia's, which is I can see from Dan's house here, and she's making all kinds of impressions in her Port Dover community too. She's maybe a future
guest.
Future guest, yeah.
Awesome. So Bob, you have retired. You have ceased working, but you are continuing to contribute and to enjoy the fruit of your labor, right? That's good. I think that's a good way to approach life, and I'm glad that you've made it. When we met before we recorded, you told me this thing, and I was like, what? So I Googled to fact check you, and this is what I found about Bob Defreyne. At the 2005 North American Bridge Championship, you were in the Sea Flight Grand National Finals, and your team won. Does Wikipedia have it right?
Of course they do.
Okay.
Is Wikipedia ever wrong?
So I have so many questions. Okay, here's my ignorant questions. Forgive me for offending you. Number one, who plays bridge? Number two, how much money did you win for winning this? It's probably zero, but I'm curious to know in case
Zero.
Okay. And three, does this mean you're like a bigger deal than I ever imagined? Like, is there like a bridge magazine and like you were on the front cover?
Our picture was in the magazine for sure.
There's a magazine.
Yeah.
Okay.
A monthly bulletin.
Okay, so bridge, I enjoy games. I had never heard of it. In fact, I haven't had time to YouTube I don't know anything about it, so forgive my ignorance, but this is amazing, and I think it speaks to your intelligence. Obviously, I'm assuming it's a very high-level strategy thinking game, lots of strategy, like curling, and you got to be 10 moves ahead, and you were successful at it. You devoted your time to it, and I think, Bob, the things you devote your time to, you have done well.
That's a good way to put it, Dan, for sure.
So I'm thrilled that you won this thing. So number one, who plays bridge? Two, how much money did you win? And does this mean you're like a big deal in the bridge community?
Bridge is, believe it or not, duplicate bridge is highly competitive. And when I finished my playing days at basketball and baseball, something needed to fill the void. And my mother said, "You gotta come play. It's very competitive." And I said, "Bridge, like with old people type thing." And and loved it. And actually, my partner was my baseball pitcher, my fastball pitcher, Reg Smith. We became partners, and yeah, we worked really hard at it. Dare I call it an obsession? Yeah, my wife would call it an obsession when I first started playing. I wanted to learn everything about the game. At the time, internet was going on, so I could research things, and I worked hard at my craft, and I still do. I'm still continuing with my partners to read and learn, and some of the best players in the world I've connected with, and I can email them, and they answer questions for me. And we did not win any money. You win gold points, which I guess in the bridge world is a big thing. And yeah, I do very well in bridge for sure. I don't want to brag about, but kind of a big deal in bridge circles. That's for sure. There's no doubt. My partner and I just won a tournament, and we qualified to go to New Orleans in the fall. Whether we go or not, that's a different story. But we qualified to go to the North American Championships there. So
amazing, Bob. You are
lots of fun.
Yeah, you're successful in whatever you devote your time to, and congratulations. That's amazing. Like you, I do an obscure sport called triathlon. Running, but like at my age, I compete in age group. Like I compete in males in my age category, and I usually win, and there's never any, like, right? There's
No.
but I often don't even stay for.
But you're a hero in your triathlon circle for sure. You
am
are.
I? Yeah, am I? Okay.
Well, the people are who know.
Yeah.
When you come home, doesn't mean a thing.
No, it doesn't.
Same.
and that isn't why you do it, right?
No.
We share a love for, not for competition, because it's like some people love competition for feeding their egos, right? Or like they have to win, and it's like a way they feel good about themselves. No, for me, it's the journey. It's the learning. And then however that competitive nature gets mixed in, and when you know what you're doing and you know how to plan to be successful, and then you can compete against someone else to test where you're at. That's fun, right?
Absolutely. That's in a nutshell right there.
Yeah. And if you can keep it from becoming an unhealthy obsession, or if I don't win, I'm not satisfied. Oh, all the more to you. Because if you got to win, or, it's not quite as enjoyable along the way. So
it's definitely more fun to win.
It is. It is. Cool. Even if you're the only one on the planet that cares.
That's right.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, Bob, I'm going to leave you with one more hard question, and then we'll wrap it up. You could probably talk for hours, but some of my guests who are successful in that success looks different for some people depending on their industry or what it is that they're unordinary about. Your unordinariness, Bob, is probably your ordinariness, in the sense of you are an ordinary guy who has just lived life well and given to others, and that makes you unordinary. I have a question that might help our listeners, and the question is about balance. And I want to ask you that this is kind of an unfair question because it is hard to have balance in life, but I thought you might be able to help us. Here's some of the things I believe to be very important, perhaps more important than anything else. 1, being a husband who loves his wife. 2, being a dad who loves his children and raises them well. 3, being a provider who provides for his family with a good life. 4, keeping healthy. So physically, emotionally, and spiritually as well. Bob, with all you have done in life and all that you have, all the things that you enjoy doing, and the schedule as full as you can make it, how do you balance well in life?
Well, you're right about family. Family is I'm not going to say everything, but is almost everything. I take pride in being a good husband. I take pride in being as good a father as I can be. Even though they don't need dad as much anymore because they're all, young adults. Support them any way we can. Balance is just, again, is supporting your family, your wife, your extended family. I know it's very important for my wife Sue and I to have our own outside interests. She still goes, girls' weekends with her friends. I have my bridge tournaments, or go biking with her friend. Those things we encourage each other to do. So that balance is really important. That that we keep doing that, and just helping my parents are aging a bit and supporting them as much as I can and we can. My sisters and I do. That balance is important too.
I think what I'm hearing you say, and if I could put on my psychology hat for a second, and I'm not a psychologist, so I don't even have that hat, but
you're pretty good.
What you just described is you give a lot, right? And so when giving is part of your lifestyle, you, by default, don't have as much time for you, right? And so to be a good husband and raise your kids and to be a good provider and to provide quality life for your family and to be balanced physically, emotionally, spiritually, I think the biggest thing you can do is not live life completely for you.
Yeah. You still have to take time for yourself.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong there. Sure. I still take time for myself. There's times when, nope, I need an hour. I'm going to.
Well, 4 hours. 18 holes of golf takes 4 hours, Bob.
That's true, yeah. So, but.
Good. I think that the idea there that giving allows that balance to really to stay balanced, right? Because life is to be given. And Bob, what a good way to conclude that, because that is, I think, the story of your life, which is cool. I got together with you a week ago, having not seen you in how many years? 20?
Yeah, but I knew you were out there.
You knew you were out there.
I knew you were coaching, and
yep.
Actually, my youngest Caleb, you took him on a few trips to the church, right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah. He came to our sports camps throughout his teen years and stuff. And yeah, I keep an eye on him. That's Bob Defreyne's kid. I'm gonna observe and see. Yeah. No, and he was a wonderful young guy. Well, Bob Defreyne, you are unordinary. How do you feel about that?
Oh, thanks, Dan. It's the best compliment I've had today.
Your wife's like, I've got a few other adjectives I could use to describe Bob. Well, Bob, thanks so much for the time and coming here today. And I hope that the listeners have been blessed by hearing your story. And good luck in New Orleans. I hope you get to go.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that'd be exciting. And thanks for giving us your time today. We'll see you around Norfolk County.
Can I just say, Dan, you were a great student, but I think you're even a better adult. So thank you very much.
All right, Bob. I'm going to edit that out. No one will believe you. Okay. Thank you. This episode of Norfolk Unordinary is brought to you by Coco Cabana Chocolate Fudge Gourmet Cafe. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram, 16 Walker Street, Port Dover, Ontario.